Corsets during the Victorian era were torture devices that caused consumption, scoliosis, and death to thousands of women. This has been so commonly repeated in our modern culture that many believe it to be fact, but we should not judge all historical practices through a modern filter. Corsets were structured undergarments worn by women in the 19th century to support and protect their torsos, and were generally boned with steel and baleen. Corsets have developed a bad reputation in recent years as symbols of oppression and pain. However, this is incorrect. In reality, corsets were comfortable support garments that did not cause any horrible diseases or disfigurations, and women of all classes wore them. Recent medical studies into Victorian corsets, as well as accounts from Victorian women themselves, have shown that corsets were not as bad as is commonly believed today. Diseases that are normally linked to corsetry have very different origins, and women did not faint while wearing corsets. Gerhard S. Schwartz, an MD from the New York Academy of Medicine, wrote a report on corsets and the effects they actually had on women. The most commonly blamed diseases on corsets are tuberculosis, cancer, and scoliosis. However, tuberculosis is a bacterial disease, and cancer and scoliosis are still prevalent today. In his report, Schwartz concludes that the corset is an essentially innocent garment. As for women fainting in Victorian corsets, most accounts of fainting come from fiction or anecdotes. There is no evidence of it in non-fiction works. In fact, the term fainting couch, a couch designed to catch women as they fell, did not come into print until 1959. Before then, they were called day beds and were styled after the ancient Roman couches used by men and women long before corsets were invented. Tight lacing, the method of severely reducing one's waist size through small tight corsets, was frowned upon in the Victorian era, and most women wore corsets for comfort and support. In 1867, one woman wrote to a magazine that she unknowingly placed her lively, healthy girl in a boarding school that practiced tight lacing. When the daughter came home 4 years later, she had a tiny wasp waist, and the mother describes her as pale and languid. Many medical men from the Victorian era also said that lacing corsets to a reasonable tightness was fine, but tight lacing should be discouraged. From extant garments, we can see that waists of 15-16 inches were actually very rare, and most women had waists ranging from 24 to 30 inches. Most corsets were made with comfort in mind, and women of all classes wore them, from the highest duchess to the commonest housemaid. Clearly then, corsets were not tight and oppressive because women in the workforce had to be able to do their activities with them on. Some men opposed corsets, fearing that they harmed their daughters or wives, but one woman, scorning this assumption, said, "Men have never felt the comfortable support of a well-made garment." At the end of the day, corsets are not oppressive and dangerous. They did not cause all of those horrible diseases. Victorian women enjoyed wearing them, and tight lacing was looked upon with scorn. They were comfortable garments that did not cause any horrible disfigurations unless deliberately worn incorrectly. I touched upon Victorian corsets, but corsets have been used since the Elizabethan times. If they were really horrible, corsets would not have been commonly worn for over 400 years. It is easy to judge people for what they did in the past, but we should remember to look beyond our modern perceptions and try to see what life was really like back then.